Welcome to the System2 product range announcement. On this video we'll see why we're launching a new product range, what we have in the product range, and the compatibility with the current range or classic range as it's known. During this presentation we'll discuss some of the features of System2, the vPort architecture and why it matters. We'll discuss how we've switched to Wi-Fi for configuring the boards, so no more trailing cables, why we've still used a CAN bus for bulletproof networking, our approach to the modular expansion of the system, how we've trivialized over-the-air software updates, and we'll also talk about the online documentation. So with the System2 vPorts, you are able to map a virtual port onto a physical port. So on our Servo controller example here, we have Servo 1 to 8, S1 to S8, and I can assign those to any virtual port on the network. In this case, it's 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, but I can, with a simple button click, reassign them. So in this case, I've gone 81 to 88 consecutively, or you can pick any numbers at random, so 854. And now I've assigned it in a non-consecutive manner to another vPort. So if we look at a panel controller example, we can see that vPort 1 is linked to physical port 1, and we can send some color data. So I might want to send full red and full green, and this will make a, well, in this case, an interesting yellow, I suppose. So when we send or press a button on this channel, then that color data would be sent to a device that would decode it, such as our upcoming RGB LED driver. So we use two technologies to operate the system. We use Wi-Fi for the convenience of configuring each board. This means you don't have to trail cables or plug something in to configure it. You can just do it over your web browser from a phone, tablet, or preferably a PC of some description. And it's not used for normal operation, it's only used for configuration. When you press a button on a panel and operate a motor driver somewhere, for example, this goes over the CAN network. All operational instructions go over this network. And the reason we do that is it's very reliable, very fast, so it's low latency. You press a button, it happens immediately. System2 driver boards start at 8 devices, so it kind of places it in the mini panel territory of our classic range, but with huge growth. This allows you to go from 8 up to 60,000 vPorts. In practice, we've tested some very large layouts. Some of them are quite famous. We've attached hundreds and hundreds of vPorts on tens of boards, and it's proven reliable and robust. So the idea of an expansion board, for example, if you recall, a multi-panel starts at 24 ports, and then you add expansion boards to that to grow it. This system doesn't do that, in that each board is truly peered. So a panel controller at 16 ports, if you wanted another 10 ports, you would simply add another panel controller onto your network, configure the ports as you desire, and grow it in that manner. This means that there's no concept of this master and slave relationship. It is truly peered. And you can just assign the vPorts as you need them, so you don't have to stick to consecutive ranges. So if you're using our pre-configured ranges, then it'll all be done for you. Each board in the range will have its own document dedicated to that, and a demonstration video that will cover all the features. Starter kits will also have their own dedicated documentation, and they will act as a beginning place to start, and then it will feed you into the other respective documents. We've also added links to the documentation from the configuration pages of each product. So in this case, I'm looking at a Servo controller, and if I click documentation, it will take you to the website where you can find all the relevant information about that product, and load up the documentation for it, so you don't actually have to go looking for it. It's all here. And here is the user guide for the servo driver. So when it comes to expansion, there's no concept of the master and slave, as I mentioned previously. You simply add another board that does a job. If you need more servos, add servo drivers. When we have solenoid drivers or MTB or tortoise drivers, add those, and you're free to mix them as you desire. So with panels, panels at the moment are 16 ports. So you just keep adding panels till you have as many as you need. And of course, this means that the panels don't have to be all close to each other. So if you have panel controllers on one side of your layout and the other, they can either share control cooperatively, or you can mix it up and maybe have some with a dedicated control in one side and shared control on another part of the panel. With these servo drivers, we have entirely new movement. So we have the wigwag. The semaphore model is different. We've revamped that, and also the linear movement isn't linear. It actually accelerates and decelerates gently as well, so it looks a little bit more organic. We have RGB support on the panel controllers, so we can send color data as you saw previously, and we'll very shortly have sound modules as well, so that when you trigger one thing, or maybe a block detector triggers something, then it would be able to trigger a sound to go with that. One of the key features of System 2 is trivial software updates. So if you're connected to the internet, the admin panel would tell you if there is an update available, and it's up to you whether you take it or not. Click the update firmware button. It shows you the particular release or the changes here. So if you had a version from 3 or 4 versions ago, every change would be listed in that page, effectively showing you the delta between what you have on your board and what's available. And you just have to click this button and sit back, wait for about 8 minutes, and it will update and restart automatically. The whole process takes about 7 to 8 minutes. I did speed it up here, but you can see it's now saying rebooting and return to the main web page. And when we go back, we're on a new software version. And you can see now it's telling us our firmware is up to date. So we've been extensively testing System 2 for over 12 months now. It's been installed on some quite large layouts, quite public layouts, which you'll probably have seen videos on our channel, as well as some smaller layouts. And we're at the point now where it's ready to launch. You can connect our classic range of servo controllers to System 2. This would be the Servo 4R or the Servo 12. And the way you do that is to connect the switch input boards to a panel controller or a 32-port output controller. There's no network connectivity because the protocol is entirely different, but there is a way you can attach your servo controllers. You can see in this image we've connected System 2 boards directly to a 12-channel servo controller. So if you're looking for a layout control system now, then the obvious question is, should I buy the classic range or should I buy System 2? And it really comes down to a couple of factors, and we'll go over 3 use cases and see if we can help you make that decision. So if we look at use case 1, you want to operate servos with toggle switches. You've no desire to network them, keep them isolated, in which case you would use a Servo 4R or a Servo 12 from our classic range. This allows you to hook up switches directly to the servo controller and keeps installation as simple as it could be. In use case 2, you already have some of our equipment from the classic range and you desire to expand it further. We'll continue to add. We'll be making the boards available for quite some time, so you can just expand into it and grow it as you need to. If it's a new installation you're looking to build, then you should go with System 2. You can check out our release schedule to make sure that the drivers are available, or if not, when they're expected to be available. But all upcoming developments will be going into System 2. Here's our roadmap for System 2. At launch, we've got the 16-port panel controller. That's 16 inputs, which could be buttons, switches, toggle switches, block detectors, feedback, and so on. And 16 outputs, which are dual LED channels. We have the Frog relay driver, and we have the Servo driver. Q1 2023 we'll be releasing the DCC accessory decoder, a 32-port dedicated input board, a 32-port dedicated output board, a solenoid driver, and a board to support the tortoise stall motor types. In Q2 we'll be releasing a Kato and an MTB driver board. We expect to release our sound module and also the RFID detection and display modules. And for Q3, the colour addressable RGB LED driver, a routing engine, a generic PC/JMRI interface, auto signal for S2, and last of all, the latching relay driver. Well, thanks for watching the presentation. I hope you found it useful. And if you head on over to our website, there's a System2 category under the web shop where you can download the documentation, see product videos, and have a good look at it. Any questions, drop me an email.